Shalom, shalom, shalom. On the self source by giving no praise to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahushua, Bashem, Kakadash. Double honors to the Apostle Great Most and honors to you, brothers, doing the work, the most on truth and in sincerity. Yahweh's real name, of whom the world English calls God, Jehovah, or Yahweh. His real name is Yahweh. His on-street name is Yahweh Shai. And when we pray Yahweh, Bar Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Bar meaning in, Ha meaning the, and Sham meaning names, Yahweh, the name of Yahweh Shai. This is, the conversation topic of the day. Yeah, man, it's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. As all of these things these things happen when they are, because you know what it is when these things happen, and we're getting one step closer, right, to what it is that we want, and that is the end of this man's kingdom, right? Habakkuk 2 and 3, for the vision is yet from the appointed time, right? So these prophecies are to come to pass when they're supposed to come to pass, right? This is, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, right? Because it will surely come, it will not tarry. So although these things feel like they've been taking time, right? Really, they're not taking time, right? They're gonna come quick, as we've been seeing, right? Because recently, for instance, one of the things before they actually did drop bombs on Iran. One of the things that they kind of pointed out, I've forgotten which news channel it was. I think it was like NBC or something like that. One of the things they pointed out is Trump keeps saying this in 2 weeks, and like it's kind of been like meh. But this time it was like he said within 2 weeks he'll make a decision, and then like bam, Saturday, right? Which highly occultic as well, right? Because that was the summer solstice, right? Saturday the 21st of June, right? And then when you look as well, when they first dropped the bomb, when Israel first attacked Iran, right? What was it? It was Friday the 13th, right? So we understand that these men be working with the occult, right, and stuff like that, right? So it's Isaiah 47 just on that point. We'll start from verse 10, right? It says, for thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou sayest, none seeth me, right? All of the little plans that they be doing and in the background, right? It says, thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it hath perverted thee, right? And by the way, you've been able to like amass the weapon you have, right? One of the things that they've been quote unquote praising is just the hella stealthy nature of this operation. And when you're kind of seeing, rather when you're looking at what the official story is, right, if they pulled it off, it was an impressive operation, right, to basically fly the B-2 bombers all the way from America. I forget the name of the what do you call it, the state. You look in these absolutely massive ordinances, right? I'm just trying to see if it does say, but basically it's saying that if the damage was from all the way from, rather the B-2 bombers flew all the way from the States, right? Dropped their bombs and flew all the way back, right? And the other bombers that were sent to Guam were just like a diversion, right? Now, if that is true, right, then it's like, yo, they needed refueling planes, like 37 hours just flying, right? So this is saying during the 18-hour flight, right? The planes underwent 18 hours. I've seen 37, so maybe that was 18 hours to Iran, and then maybe 19 hours back, right? So multiple rounds of refueling. So that basically means you're having to have refueling in in air, right, and stuff like that, right? So hey, if that is the true story, it's like just buffering today, but if this is a true story, right, it just goes to show you, man, the kind of individual we're dealing with, right? As Romans 13 and 4 says, for he is the minister of good of the Most High to thee for good, but if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of the Most High, a revenger that executeth wrath upon him that doeth evil. Right? It's the point that I wanted there is that this devil beareth not the sword in vain, man. Right? If this did if there is the truth, right, this story that they've told, then it's like, yo, that's wild. Okay, to be able to just fly it all the way, that far to then do that, man, that's crazy. Okay, but like I said, it was, when you're looking at certain of the dates and times, right, you can definitely tell that these guys were very much, trying to pull in the occult, right? So let me continue, right? It says back in Isaiah 47:10, I'll start from the top again. It says, "For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou hast said, none seeth me." Right? "Thy wisdom and thy knowledge it hath perverted thee, and thou hast said in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me." Right? "Therefore shall evil come upon thee," right? "Thou shalt not know from whence it riseth," right? "And mischief shall fall upon thee, and thou shalt not be able to put it off, and desolation shall come upon thee, suddenly which thou shalt not know." Right? "So stand now with thine enchantments, right, and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. Right? If so be thou shalt be able to profit, if so be thou mayest prevail." Right? And so the whole point about this, right, and once again why I'm bringing this up, is when you look at some of the dates and times involved, it's like these guys were very much trying to lean in on that occultic energy, right? So because even like in the chat earlier on in the week, I was like, oh man, the solstice is about to come up, Lord's will something happen, right? So yeah, this is a major escalation. This was kind of like well, not kind of, this was a red line for Iran, right? With the ultimate red line, as the Israelis keep talking about, oh, we might take out Khamenei and stuff like that, which when Russia was queried on it, well, they were like, look, we're not even going to entertain that idea, right? They were clear as, look, we're not even entertaining that. We're not even going to have that conversation, right? Because that's something that would, you're taking out the leader of a country. That's wild, right? And you look at Archduke Franz Ferdinand and stuff like that. So basically everything is going in the right direction. Right, so yeah, you don't just be taking out dignitaries like that, but hey, that's what Israel's been doing anyway, right? Israel and America saw General Soleimani a few years back as well. Right, but let me continue. So Isaiah 47:13 now says, "Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from these things which shall come upon thee." Right? And that's it, right? All of these councils, all this looking into the heavens, trying to align with this, trying to align with that, right? But it ain't going what you call it? It ain't going to help you in the end, right? But let me grab this as well though, because it's kind of what the whole top point of the lesson is, right? Because read into point that I want, right? Is in verse 14, right? Because right now, like, the rest of the world is lamenting that they are worried what's gonna happen next, what could happen, what could the retaliation be, right? We're like, yo, Iran, go all out, man, right? Because an all out retaliation works in our favor. Okay. So it says, Isaiah 33:6, and read this: "And wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, and strength of salvation. The fear of Yahweh is his treasure." Right. So for us, we're stable as these things are happening. And why are we stable? Because we understand, one, that certain prophecies are still to be fulfilled, right? Namely the MOTB. Right, we're still very much waiting for that to be, pushed out and implemented. But just thinking about it, to borrow the term from the elders, right? But like to think about it like an algorithm, right? You can see how this can lead to the MOTB, right? Iran is now threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz, right? Which that's going to be a almost like a suicide pill, right? America's been like, yo, that's a red line for them. Right? So it's just all heating up, man. But for us, we're happy, we're smiling, right? We're rejoicing, as these things happen, right? And imagine, like, if we're kind of like feeling like this now, imagine when all kind of hell is befallen upon this place, right? Because we all know that our salvation, right, draweth nigh, right? This is Isaiah 65:13. Like I said, the point that I want is from 14. Right, it says, therefore, thus saith the Lord power, behold, my servants shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Right, this is part of the reason, that people are starting to lament as well, because they're like, yo, if they do close the Strait of Hormuz, and the knock-on effect, right, that will have in terms of energy prices, and therefore food production, and therefore food delivery, right? People are always like, yo, this is gonna cause inflation, right? If not hyperinflation. It says, behold, my servants shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servants shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. And we're rejoicing right now. These are the kind of news stories we like waking up to, man. And just because of the time zone differences, man. I always say it's like I leave my data off at night when I sleep, right? So, I wake up and I'm just like, turn on my data, just get like lots of notifications. Like before I even could read any of the notification, by the amount of vibrations my phone had did, I was like, yes, that something must have happened, right? This is people think we're crazy, right? And that's even something at certain times you gotta hide a smile. People are like, oh, what do you think? And you want to be like, yo, this is beautiful. But, oh yeah, I say it's interesting what's happening in the world right now. But I digress. It says, behold, my servant shall rejoice, but he shall be ashamed. Now, verse 14, behold, my servant shall sing for joy of heart, but he shall cry for sorrow of heart, and shall howl for vexation of spirit. Right, so imagine it, right now, this is still just in the realms of theory. Now, America has bombed Iran, right? But right now, people are like, oh my God, well, what will Iran do, right? But we understand that there's going to come a time when there's going to be mass pain on these streets. Right? There's going to be, I say it's going to be mass pain on these streets, man, right? If this does cause a further escalation in living costs, like people are already through, people are in pain, people are hurt, you know. So this is what we're looking forward to, in Kal Halal Yal Bashem Al Shaib, Bashem Rakal Kadash, because our redemption draweth nigh. So let's grab that as well, because that also touches just on the joy, right? This is Luke 21:28. It says, and when, in fact, let me read into it. 25, it says, and there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, perplexity, right, and the sea and waves roaring, right. Perplexity is just the state of one who's in perplexity. Like, come on, right. This is G640 aporia. Let's see if there's anything in the regular dictionary. Right, it says inability to deal with or understand something complicated or unaccountable, right? But what did we read here, right? We're going to be stable, right? We're going to be able to do these things, okay? So it says, verse 26, it says, men's hearts failing them for fear, right? And for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, right? For the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in cloud with power and great glory. So we understand that there is a timeline, right? And we're moving further and further across the timeline, man. And it's just beautiful to see, because it's just then like, yo, this thing is close. Okay. So it says, and when these things come to pass, right, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. Right. So we understand, we coming close. Right, E is being exposed, because one of the things is what Operation Midnight Hammer, right? What's precept comes to mind, right? How's the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder, right? These are the Edomites, and right now you're having a whole load of people that are just like, y'all are being hypocrites. People are saying, what do they say? And they're basically saying, Iran should come back to the negotiating table, and Iran and then a whole load of other commentators are like, bro, they never left. Iran never left the negotiating table. So what the hell are you talking about? And Jam, you be looking at certain of these planes, and I love engineering, right? And that's really a thing when the scripture says thou art wiser than Daniel, right? You should I don't know if you've got a picture of it here, right? But you kind of see all of them just like the strike force, if you will, right, led by the B-2 bomber, right? A hell of a machine, right? This is old tech, right? If what they're saying is true, right? This is something that was developed in like the 1980s, man, right? So imagine the kind of stuff that they have now, you know. So yes, this is let me grab this image as well. Right, imagine these are things that cost billions, right? I think no, I think the B-2 bomber was or is $2.1 billion each of them, right? And then as well the cost, which goes to show you just that these elites, they don't care about you people, right? Because this mission cost around $500 million, right? And that is from what, like just the cost of the bombs. Oh, sorry, no, 500 million, 420. So like it was more than that. My apologies. $420 million was for the 14 missiles that they dropped, right? So I think each missile then turns out to be what? Let me just pull it up. Right, it was like what, 420 divided by 14, right, which is $30 million roughly each. And that was easy maths, could have done that in my head. But yeah, it was like $30 million for each of those, or each of these, where is it gone? Each of these, right? And they dropped 14 of them, and then that's not counting the Tomahawk missiles, which I believe are like 1 million each, right? So yeah, man, Esau's being exposed, right? We're coming nearer to the end. This is this is beautiful, right? You see the damage that they've done. And the thing is as well, what some of the commentators have said is like these are bunker busters, so it's like you won't necessarily see a lot. Oh damn, it's like super high res when you zoom in. Yeah, so you won't necessarily see like deep craters because it's like they pierce the ground and then they explode. So because some people at first were saying it doesn't look like they've done anything, but kind of based off of that information, you could be like, oh, fair enough, right? But yeah, that's pretty much it, man. Hey, Carl Lau Yao Bashim Yao Shabashim Kadash Shalom.